Hello, my name is Aurora Jones. This is for the final pop media presentation, Understanding Self-Identification with a Minority Group, Use of Social Identity Theory and Attribution Theory to Examine Self-Esteem Within Minority Groups. Understanding why someone would self-identify with a minority group, it can always, when trying to figure that out, it's always good to understand how social psychology theories can help us understand that, right? So as we gain a connection between our group and ourselves, our self-esteem can become higher. Self-identity is a very important piece to people becoming more authentically themselves and to self-expression. It can help to find like-minded people, people who understand your life experiences, um, form meaningful connections, and increase positive affect. The key terms or the main focuses of this presentation are going to be Paris is Burning, which is the documentary I'll be talking about in the next slide, social identity theory and attribution theory. And this quote here is from the very beginning of the movie, so you might see a couple quotes going through. So, Paris is Burning. It came out in 1991, and it was directed and produced by Jenny Livingston. Paris is Burning is a documentary filmed in the late 1980s in the New York ball scene. The ballroom scene was a place primarily for Black, Indigenous, people of color, LGBT people, a lot of low-income people. Many of these individuals were cast out of their families. They went and found this whole community of people in the ballroom scene. So it was a place to celebrate each other, find community, and the documentary follows some of the notable people in the ballroom scene, or icons as we would call them, discussing that their lived experiences and how the ballroom was an opportunity to find belonging and be praised for who they were. And this is the one of the movie posters. So, social identity theory by Tashfel and Turner, or 1986, and it theorized that people tend to want to view groups which they are a part of or identify with as positive, while groups that they are not positive or not aligned with as less positive. People tend to think this way because as they feel more connection to their group, the more cohesion with group ideas, morals are created. Um, Self-esteem is also affected by social identity, as when group members can positively associate with the group and defend the group from out-group threats, and perform in a group-sanctioned way. In this case, it would be individuality, that kind of thing. They tend to have higher self-esteem. This theory helps us to understand what brings people together to form groups in the first place. It also allows for belonging and inclusion to increase. As individuals' identity becomes more aligned with the group, social fusion starts to form as well, and it is defined as when a self-identity and a group identity overlap. So, attribution theory. In regard to our example from Paris is Burning, attribution theory can explain why members of the ballroom scene use their own slang, their own dancing, why they form their own interconnected groups called houses, and how they view themselves and how they view the general population to view them, right? So attribution theory by Graham and Folks, 1990, and Miller and Rampel, 2004, explains how and why individuals act and think in a certain way, and can help to understand the reasons for both internal and external action. So an internal action is something that you do within yourself or within a group. External actions are how people act towards a different group. And it can also help us to understand why members of different groups behave in certain ways. Many members of the ballroom scene had been discriminated against growing up or abandoned by their families after coming out. They've repeatedly been told that they would never fit into mainstream society. Another quote that I really love is from this gentleman, and he's talking about how his father was warning him that life was going to be hard for him because he was black, gay, and a man. So it was a very interesting time. Connection to Paris is Burning. Social identity theory can explain how distinctiveness of a group can shape its members, while attribution theory can help to understand how group members behave in line with their ideals. And when used together, and the positive effect on individual self-esteem can be very powerful. This is seen in Paris is Burning, and it's also been studied in the field of social psychology in particular, but psychology as a whole. And one such study was by Dietz, Euler, and Merle in 1998, which is the article I'll be covering. So the article is titled Effects of Social Identity and Threat on Self-Esteem and Group Attributions. It was an empirical study, 2 by 2 factorial design, and there was 2 separate studies in this article. Um, The focus was on how a threat group identity can cause the group members to react in a defensive way, and that attributions of the group members, both externally and internally, uh, while defending the group, it could help increase or decrease the members' self-esteem, and it was found to increase at the end. So study 1 had 170 psychology students, 114 of whom were women. The average age sample was 18.7. So the level of social group identity was rated strong to weak, and the level of social group threat was rated low to high. And then there were a few measures used within this first study. Collective self-esteem scale by Luthanin and Crocker, 1992. Rosenberg self-esteem scale, Rosenberg, 1965. Porter and Smith organizational commitment scale by Porter and Smith, 1970, and the collective self-esteem scale using their universities as their group. So in study 1, they had them fill out the collective self-esteem scale using their universities as their group. They were then asked to read an article which ranked the universities across the US. And then participants were asked to complete a task where they were going to give points away that held some value to them, either to people in their group, so people from their university, or to people in other groups, other universities. They also determined the in-group bias for each participant. So if you had a higher connection to your university, are you more biased towards your own group than you are to another group, right? Or do you hold more biases against other groups? So it was found that as participants defended their university and they gave their points to other people in their groups, their self-esteem increased because they were making their group feel better, so their self-esteem increased. They were able to reinforce this, like, we are together regardless of our status, right? So in connection to Paris is Burning, members of the ballroom scene were very aligned with their group. Most were and still are, because ballroom still is a big culture in New York, and it's starting to expand from there. Are fiercely protective of the ballroom culture. Um, Ballroom raised its members' self-esteems. Many of these people were ostracized from their families. They were joining the ballroom scene to find support, and ballroom kind of became their family. So they were very aligned with their group, and this definitely influenced their attributes, their actions, their thoughts, how they did everything, right? And so they were also very biased towards other groups. And so when other people, either the wealthier white LGBT people in other parts of New York, or the straight community, the, more homophobic or transphobic Black community, wherever they were getting heat from, they would come together for, right? And they created a strong group connection over it. So in study two, there were 98 psychology students, 63 of which were women. The average age was 22.3. Collective self-esteem scale was taken using universities as a group again. They also did a median split of membership esteem scale subscale score, and that median was 23. So this split people into either below 18.1, where they were placed in the weak social identity condition, or above 25.7, where they were placed in the strong social identity condition, or somewhere in between. The same manipulations from study one were then applied, and as predicted, participants with a strong identification and group-serving attributions had higher self-esteem than those with low identification and self-serving attributions. So in study two, as predicted again, there was a three-way interaction of social identity, threat, and type attribution on self-esteem. So participants that had a weak connection to their university, their self-esteem remained higher when exposed to external factors for their university score, regardless of threat level, and when internal factors for the university score, they had higher self-esteem with higher threat than lower threat. Participants who had a strong identification with their university, they had higher self-esteem when external factors or attributes were given for the university's low score, and with internal factors for the high score. So they celebrated doing well, obviously, because they're part of that in-group, right? Group serving attributions resulted in a higher self-esteem with higher identification with their universities. The connection here is the stronger the members of the ballroom were self-identifying with the scene, the higher their self-esteem when faced with both external attributes, so people like their families, homophobic people, the wealthier white society of the LGBT group in New York, whoever from the outside, right? Or internal attributes, which could be another house, right? The houses where there are individual families that were a part of the broader scene. So those who were less involved with the ballroom scene, they cared less when ballroom was threatened or discredited in any way because they didn't feel as close to that group. Um, and this could often, like I said, be due to wealthier white LGBT community in New York at that time, or from groups outside of the LGBT community. So in conclusion here, the social identity theory was showcased in the documentary as you get to know some of the main people being interviewed. The balls became a part of their personal identity, and fusion between the two, the self-identity and the group identity, they fused together. They had fusion happening. The attribution theory helps us to understand some of the actions, the thoughts that the scene player took in, so the slang, the type of dancing, how fiercely connected they were, the houses, how they viewed their group, right? And how their group affected how they acted as an individual. And although it was not socially acceptable at the time, ballroom gave them a safe place to explore and fully represent authentically. Someone from a different group may look at the world of ballroom in this documentary, judge their actions to be scandalous, but to the group members, it was just normal life. Paris is Burning is a powerful documentary, and it celebrates subculture that was rarely seen by the outside world, studying their relationships, seeing how they built each other up and defended each other and their group. And it's a beautiful reminder of the power of social identity to increase self-esteem. So I hope you enjoyed this. Paris is Burning. Highly recommend watching it. It is on HBO Max. And I know I went over on this presentation a little bit, but I hope you enjoyed it.